Sarah Davis, so nice to have you here today.
Yeah, thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
It's great to see you. You've been a contestant on Win This Listing before. That was the last time we got to hang out, which was fun.
It was really fun.
And I know you've won awards for customer service in real estate. You're an award-winning realtor here in San Diego. Real estate's a hot topic right now.
Yeah.
Maybe not as hot as Bitcoin, which everyone's talking about, which has got some really interesting stuff that we're going to discuss later in the show. But real estate's the one thing everyone is expecting, sort of like the crash to come from real estate, and because that was what happened in the last crash. We've seen a lot of low inventory circumstances sort of playing out in the past year or two here in San Diego. And we've also seen technology sort of just take a whole new shape.
Right.
The whole scope of everything has changed. And so I wanted to talk to you about that today. I know you've embraced it. I mean, where do we begin to explain how technology has changed the role of a realtor?
Oh, it is so different. And I've been selling houses for 9 years, and just the change in what I do, my daily tasks, and how I serve my clients in 9 years has been drastic. But if you think about where we were as a realtor, as the industry, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it was entirely different. And it's really exciting to think about where we're going to be in 10 years, right? So, for example, how do our clients find houses? You know, it used to be, before I got into the industry, that they couldn't just find their houses online on their own. They would need to actually come into the office, and there would be a paper book. Do you really?
Absolutely.
You're not old enough.
The first house I bought, that is how it happened.
Really?
So first of all, sounds of freedom flying above us. They like to wait until right when we push record to fly above, but where would we be without them? And I do remember that specifically when I was buying my first house, having to tell my agents, this is the kind of house I'm looking for. They would come by my office and drop off printouts, single page black and white printouts with one picture of the curb of the house, the curb appeal shot of the house, and the details on the home, and they would say, tell us which ones you want to go see. And so I would, like sorting my mail, go trash, that one, see that one. I'd say, okay, I found 3, here's the addresses. They'd say, okay, we'll come pick you up Saturday, and we'll go see them.
Right.
And that was the process.
Right.
Literally, it took that long. I mean, it'd take a week.
That's exactly it. How inefficient and how efficient we've become. And I think there are a lot of agents that are concerned that there are buyers now finding their own houses online. It doesn't mean that they represent themselves, but yeah, they're looking at all of the different real estate websites. They're identifying what they like and what they don't and what they want to see. And I think that's great. We should embrace it. Our role as a realtor is not just to find them a house and open a door. Right? Our role is to get them the best results, right? To make sure that they get their offer accepted, make sure that they don't overpay for that property, guide them through the process so that it's not a nightmare, explain the disclosures, help them get the requests for repairs that they need after the home inspection. There's so much that we do to make sure that the results that they want are achieved. So I'm not concerned about it. I think it's a great thing.
Are you working with a lot of buyers right now?
I work with both, right? And I find that year to year it changes. So, a couple years ago I was about 70% sellers, and then I went to about 50-50 last year, and then now I'm about 70% buyers this year.
Okay.
Yeah, still some listings, but really heavy on the buyer side this year. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. Being a millennial, I tend to attract millennial clients, right? So I work with I've worked with multiple clients in their 80s and 90s this year too. However, a large portion of my business is millennials, and they're buying their first house typically in this price range, right? In San Diego, that's just common. Yeah.
So do you have a bias right now on the market? I mean, we're in a seasonal.
We're definitely in a little seasonal shift, and that's normal, and I see it every year. And I feel like literally from Halloween until third week of January, it's always a little down. I think that's totally normal. But you're right, it's been low inventory for quite a while. It's still low inventory, and that can be really, really challenging. Interest rates are still really, really good. And I do think there's going to be a shift in the market that it is going to go down. How much down? Obviously, we don't know. We don't have a crystal ball, but I think San Diego is going to be significantly less affected than other parts of the country where they don't have the same industry and the same drive that everybody wants to live in San Diego. And if you look at the anticipated population growth for San Diego, you know, we have a massive shortage of housing. So I don't have such a concern that we're going to have this massive crash like we did before, and also the lending is entirely different than it was before. So I do anticipate some kind of downturn. I just don't think it's worth freaking out over. And it's a conversation that I have with all of my clients before they buy about what is the time frame that you want to stay in that house for, right? So, you know, if they're a flipper, it's an entirely different conversation. If they want that house for 5 or 10 years, great. You know, it's just something to look at on an individual perspective. Yeah,
no, that makes a lot of sense. That's exactly how everyone should look at real estate, really. I mean, if you are, your exit is, you have to plan that at some point.
Always.
If you can buy your forever home as your first home, then you're going to be one of the very few.
Absolutely.
Right? It's very difficult to do that, although I encourage people to try. Sometimes people don't try. They just say, you know what, we're going to have to buy something later again anyway. Well, let's think about that real quick. Do you have to? Because if you can buy that first home and keep it and retire in that home, you really save yourself a lot of money and a lot of headache in the long run. And a lot of concern, because if you keep the home forever, then you never have to worry about the market.
Exactly.
If the market goes down, you pay less taxes. Yippee!
Right.
You know, if the market goes up, hey, you know, your net worth increases. You gotta pay more taxes. But, you know what I mean? So there's always like a way to, if you stay in the home, if you have to exit, then you open yourself up to being vulnerable to the marketplace.
Absolutely. Or at least considering, if you can, if your needs change, because a lot of people's needs change over the years, but if you can, holding on to that as an investment. I mean, that's what I've done in terms of, like, you know, our family grew, so we needed a bigger house, and then we held on to it and have a great rental property. But people's families grow, and then they downsize, and things change. I agree with you. It's not always feasible to stay in that first home, but it is important to look at it from a long-term perspective.
Have to. Our in-studio audience is here. Bob Weller's in the house. What's up, Bob?
Hi, Derek.
It's great to have you, Bob. The room just lit up when you walked in. I love it. Thanks for coming in, man. Okay. Great conversation, Brian DeVore. Obviously it's a great conversation. Listen to Smarter San Diego. What do you expect? Come on. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate you tuning in. And of course, if you have questions, comments, you can ask them right now. We are live on Facebook, so we can answer your questions. We can interact with you. You can say hi, or whatever it is that you want to say, and we'll be happy to check it out. So when we talk about technology specifically, let's go with the buy side first. Where does technology impact the buy side, and how are you using it to help your clients?
Yeah, it makes such a huge change in my client's life, right? So a minute ago we were talking about thinking long term, and I'll give it a story as an example. Recently, my buyers identified a property that they wanted to purchase and called me immediately. We saw it, they loved it. So obviously communication is key. So the first thing that I did was call the listing agent to have that conversation, find out what's important to the buyers and what is it going to take to get that offer accepted. And what he told me was that, you know, price was important and the terms were important, but they weren't the only important thing. Really, timing was important. Not only how quickly could we close, but also get me an offer soon. It's basically what he gave me in other words, right? And he had said that there were 2 threats of offers. Threats of offers in the industry, it means, you know, agents said that they're going to write up an offer and they haven't done so yet, but we're expecting something. And he basically said on this particular file that whoever gets me an offer around blank price as soon as possible is going to get their offer accepted. So that being said, you know, I knew that I had to be quick, I had to be efficient. I could have, you know, driven to my clients and brought them a piece of paper, or brought them the paper offer, gone through everything, driven back, scanned it in. That's going to take a long time. It's going to waste a lot of time. So what I did is just call my clients, go through the price, the terms, everything online, make sure that, or on the phone, make sure that they're comfortable with it. And then I had them sign the offer online with, e-signatures, which is pretty common nowadays. And they actually signed on their smartphone. They were out at the time. They used their fingers to just sign the offer. And then I CC'd the listing agent on the signing invite. So as soon as my buyers clicked sign, it was already in his inbox. And I just called him and let him know. And in this particular case, we were the first of 3 offers that came in that day. We were quicker than the second offer by about 10 minutes.
Wow.
And my clients got their offer accepted with no counter. And we closed the escrow, and now they're living in their dream home, which is a very specific and hard to find home. So that was so important, because when I think about it, it blows my mind. Like 10 minutes is nothing. Like that could be someone's coffee break or anything. However, that efficiency, right? That period of 10 minutes affected the course of where my clients live for the next 5, but more likely probably 10 or 20 years of their life. And where you live changes everything, right? So
that's incredible.
Massive. Yeah.
And you coined a new term for me: threats of offer.
Oh.
I've never heard of that
Oh, it's
before.
actually really common.
I threaten you with an offer.
Yeah, I know.
I will make an offer for you.
It's funny because it's so negative, even though it should be so positive anyway.
We're gonna make an offer. An offer's coming.
Yeah.
Well, you did not threat an offer. You made an offer.
Right.
You used technology to do it quickly.
Right.
And I wonder if the agents who missed out didn't do that.
Right.
And that's why they missed out, because it sounds like they had the beat on you initially. They'd seen the property sooner. They talked to the listing agent sooner.
Right.
They had made threats of an offer, but they didn't make an offer.
Right.
So they didn't get the property.
And even, because online signing is so common nowadays, right? Not every agent's doing it, but most are. But even to what degree do we do everything? Like, I found that CCing the listing agent on that signing invite makes a huge difference, because then if I'm on a call with another client, or I actually have to step out and go to an appointment, I don't need to be there to send the offer over. It's already there. It's
automatically
so
goes.
exactly. I love automating things, and I love systems, right? Because then I can serve more clients better, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Well, that's huge. That's probably saved your 10 minutes right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because who knows, you get the email, okay, hey, they signed it, now I need to forward it to someone.
Right.
Who knows how long it's going to take you to catch that.
Right.
So just that small move right there. I think most people are using a DocuSign or e-signatures or some form. I know our production company uses that for all of our signatures that we need, signatories for everything.
Yeah.
But what you're saying there actually makes a lot of sense. It's a huge tip, honestly, because hey, to have that go automatically to the listing agent not only saves you time, but it's instantaneous.
Right.
So you'll never have to look back and go, oh, if I had just checked my email faster, I could have forwarded it faster. There's no way you could get it to them any faster than that.
Exactly.
And that's the purpose of technology, is to have that level of efficiency.
Yes.
Where you can't look back and go, well, if we'd just done this, would have been better off.
Very good. That's a very good point. And I'm all about cutting out things that I don't need to do, so that I can do a better job on the things that I need to do, right? So for example, I've written offers in the back of Ubers, on planes, anywhere, but I'm a huge fan of not driving. I still drive myself places, but for example, I recently had to go to jury duty, so I took an Uber there, and I took an Uber back, and I wrote up an offer on the way there, and I wrote up a listing contract on the way back, and I think about it, I'm like, does me driving right now serve my clients? No, it doesn't. It doesn't matter that it costs me a little extra money, because I'm spending more time in doing something that I specialize in, right? Which is not driving, which is serving them. So.
I'm just waiting, because and I think this is going to start happening in urban areas, and it is in some. San Diego's not quite that urban, it's still very big geographic area. It's going to start happening in urban areas, and I can't wait to see what happens in suburban areas if it gets that far. But I do believe at some point, no one will have a car anymore.
I would love that.
Because what's the, you know what I mean? If you could just Uber everywhere, and if it
Right.
made economic sense,
Right.
even if it cost a little
that's
more
the
money,
thing.
even if it cost a little more money, I think people would still do it for the convenience. Because hey, we're going to the beach, let's get an Uber XL. There's
Love
7 of
it.
us, we have a bunch of stuff, let's get an Uber XL. Hey, it's just me going really far. I'm going all the way to downtown from Poway, let's say.
Yeah.
And an Uber X.
Every
or a pool.
time. Yeah.
I'll share the ride and go with other people if I need to, and pay way less, and be on the phone and be getting things done, and you know what I mean? It just seems like Eventually, we'll all have drivers, is what I'm saying.
That would be amazing.
That will be the technological
We'll see.
advancement of the generation.
But it is, it's productivity. And you mentioned downtown. Anytime I'm going to go downtown, I take an Uber, right? Just because, unless you live downtown and you know street by street, right? And I've lived in San Diego 31 years, or almost 30 years. I pretty much know it very well. And yet, if you don't know, like, where is the best parking at the best time, like, you need to take an Uber.
And by the way, this show is not sponsored by Uber.
Or Lyft, right?
But I would accept sponsorship from Lyft. I'm just going to make that, I'm just going to put it out there. Lyft is great. Uber is the big 800-pound gorilla in the space.
It's like Kleenex.
It's like Kleenex. Yes,
That's exactly
it's become a verb.
You know what?
Get an Uber.
That's a great point, because I actually do use Lyft most of the time, and yet I said Uber. I use Uber
really?
sometimes, yeah. But
That's
Lyft
funny.
is usually what, it doesn't, I have them both.
Yeah,
you
me
know?
too.
Yeah.
But like the other day, we were looking to go downtown, and it was kind of a far drive. It was at traffic time. I looked on Uber, it was surging, $66. Looked on Lyft, $31.
Huge difference.
That's massive.
Yeah.
So, and they're generally the same pool of drivers. It's just,
right.
One just has that brand recognition and loyalty to an extent that they can kind of get away with that. And I've let them get away with it before, but no more. No more. So executives at Lyft that are religiously watching this show, just give me a call and we'll take care of promoting you further. So now people who most people are finding homes online before they look at them. They're seeing them online, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, are you sending those to people? Or are people just kind of, finding them on their own? There's your own portal that you have where you can send them to, hey, these are the homes that fit your criteria, and it can email them. Do you find that works? What's the most technologically efficient? That or just saying, hey, here's how to use online systems?
Yeah, I do set my clients up for direct syndication from the multiple listing service. So that's like initially we have a consultation. We go over everything: their wants, their needs, the process, what to expect, and then I syndicate the emails from the MLS. And I like that better because they're getting more quantity of data and they're getting more accurate data that way. So I love it. That's what I do. However, it doesn't mean that they're not going to continue to look on Realtor.com or Zillow. Usually they're looking on Zillow and Trulia and all those different websites, and that's fine. And so what I tell them is that I know you're going to look at different websites, totally fine. If there's something that's popping up on one of those websites that's not on the MLS, there's a reason for that. It's usually either a for sale by owner, which is very rare, and I can still assist with, but we really don't have that many in San Diego. But more commonly, it's going to be that it's already in escrow. And it's just showing as accurate on Zillow, but it's already in escrow. It's not available anymore. So again, I'm fine with them playing around, and sometimes they'll find their own thing, and who knows? Most of the time they're using the MLS.
Yeah, it's going to be the most accurate.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Zillow is not necessarily known for its accuracy.
No, that's exactly.
That's just a fact.
Yeah.
It's known for its robust technology. And you can look up homes all over the country on Zillow, which is cool. If you're here and you want to look in the backwoods of Arkansas, you can look and see what's for sale. At least have some kind of idea.
Right.
But if you're in San Diego, you really, it's going to be pretty accurate if you just use the actual MLS.
Right.
In fact, it's going to be the most accurate. What about other things that you might be using, maybe from the seller side, that are technology?
Yeah, gosh, there's so many good ones. One of the things that I started doing recently, like within the past year, would be virtual staging, which is really fun. It depends on it depends on the property and the situation. So if it's a property that someone's currently living in, we're not going to use it. If it's a vacant property, I'm still a fan of actual staging, having the furniture rented and in the home, because it gives buyers a really good feel for the layout and the flow, and it typically buyers are willing to pay more for a property that's staged. That's a statistic. It's not always feasible. It's very expensive, doesn't always fall within the client's budget or their time frame or their needs, because sometimes it takes a while to get the staging furniture out there. So something that I do for my clients on a lot of vacant properties is a virtual staging, and it looks very real. So I tested it out on a few listings, and I actually put it on Facebook and asked for some feedback, like, what do you guys think of this? Here's the raw photo, and here's the one that put the virtual staging, and people were like, that's not real furniture. Are you kidding me? It looks great. And so we do put a little disclosure in the MLS, both in the agent remarks and in the buyer remarks. It says that, just so you know, it's virtual staging, it is vacant, go ahead and go. But it still helps to give the buyers an idea of what might work in that house. So it's really cool.
That is amazing that you can do that. Unbelievable. Yes. So what's the purpose for, let's say, the seller doing virtual staging? Is it less expensive?
Well, it's way less expensive. It's significantly less expensive. You know, we're talking the difference between virtual staging being, you know, a few $100s or so, depending on how many photos and how in-depth you want to go, to, you know, several $1,000s at least for actual staging, depending on the size of the home.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's dramatically less expensive.
Quicker.
It's quicker. Okay, so there's some advantages there to using that technology.
Absolutely.
Huh. Did you think in a market like this, which has been pretty hot, that that's something that a seller could get away with and not have it cost them anything?
Yeah, and I think, again, it really all comes down to the particular listing. It really depends. I'm still a big fan of actual staging when you can, but we need to look at, you know, all things to consider, like, so the client's budget and the time frame, and there are other things to consider about actual staging in terms of, you know, if you're going to sell to an investor all cash, very quick close, it's probably not going to work for actual staging, because you need to give the stager plenty of notice to take it out of the home, and you can't tent when they're staging. So there's just so many things to consider. But for a lot of clients, I think it's an easier, cheaper way that still helps add value.
She's so well spoken, isn't she?
Thanks.
It's like, I just sitting here, I could just listen to her talk.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
And you have these perfect teeth that are staring at me. And I have to go to the dentist today, and I'm just I'm so mortified of the dentist. I just hate the dentist so much.
Oh my gosh.
First world problems. I have to remind myself of that. I have to.
Your teeth are great. I mean, I
got problems. I got problems. Yeah, they're not going to have good news for me today, so I'm a little bit freaking out. But I should just be thankful that I have the opportunity to go see a dentist.
And teeth.
Yeah, I have teeth. I do have teeth. So how do you find people communicate these days? Because, like, back in the day, for example, we give an example earlier when I bought my first house in 2001. But, you know, it was all over the phone.
Yeah.
And, you know, my agents had cell phones, of course. I don't think I had a cell phone yet. Maybe I did. Maybe I had a big old block, a brick.
I remember that.
The brick. That was the 80s. No. So, you know, it was mostly over the phone. You find that it's a lot more like text now.
Yeah.
Text-oriented? Is that how the communication takes place?
It is. It's really interesting. It depends on the client. So anytime I'm going to have an initial consultation, whether it's a buyer or seller, I'm going to be asking them, how do you prefer to be communicated with, and when do you prefer to be communicated with, and what is the second method if something is relatively important and I can't get a hold of you for a period of time, you know, what can I go to next? Because everyone is so different. So, you know, most of my millennial clients do want text, and that's fine, and I love it. It's easy. A lot of my elderly clients, they don't have cell phones or computers, right? So phone call is the way to go, and that's totally fine. But then I've definitely had some clients that'll request a certain app, you know. So I've had some clients this past year say, we really like WhatsApp, because for them it was easier to have a group communication between all the people buying the property and myself. So I'm like, cool, great, I'll get up, downloaded it. It was very simple. It worked great. So I've used lots of different apps and all that. But
WhatsApp, that's such a good name.
Do you use
WhatsApp?
Yeah, I know. I'm like, okay. It's totally new to me, but like, I'm happy to adjust to like what works for them. And so, yeah, I would say so many of my clients love texting, and I'm great with that. But it also depends on what type of information am I going to be giving them. I don't like to give big news via text.
Gotcha.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Absolutely.
See, I'm more of an email guy, but if there's something we need to drill down on, phone.
Absolutely.
But I'm a very old millennial. Like, I don't really qualify if you calculate like my soul age in there. But on paper, I'm barely a millennial.
I think that's what I am too. Like, barely. I don't
just
know anyway.
barely. I think. Maybe I need to double check it.
Yeah.
Either I barely am or barely. I'm pretty sure I barely am.
Right.
But you know, I like email because it's sort of my to-do list. So here's the things you need to do. If I get an email, does this need to be on my to-do list? If not, bye-bye. If so, then it stays in there until it gets done. So that's why I like to use the email. I think text is crazy. That's the preferred method of contact for so many people these days, because it's so easy to get for stuff to get lost.
Yes, exactly.
You know?
And misconstrued, right, or not understood, right? So, you know, obviously face-to-face is best, because you're getting all of the methods of communication. You're getting body language. That's so important. On the phone, you're getting tone, which is really important too, but you're missing body language. On text, you're almost missing everything. You're just getting words. And there are times where, you know, I can't tell, is my client joking, or are they nervous, or, you know, how are they really feeling about this?
Yeah.
And so that's why I don't really love text. I think it's fine, especially if it's going to be just an FYI, right? So schedule the home inspection for when you want, see you then, you know, that's fine, right? But I don't like to tell them your offer is accepted via text. I'd much rather say, you know, I have some news, can you chat at 6, right? Because if I open up to a really big conversation via text, there's going to be more questions. And even though we've already gone over it at the buyer consultation, we've already gone over it when we wrote the offer, they're still going to want to, you know, not only are they going to be excited, but what is my next step? So I'm going to be then getting into a larger conversation where I remind them how long they have to get their earnest money deposit in, when works for the home inspection, and all of that. And just, you know, typing up 5 paragraphs on text, it's just so, you know, it's not personal. It's not good.
Well, how has, I mean, so kind of staying on the listing side, how would you say technology has affected things beyond the virtual staging, which is a really cool option? I had no idea that existed.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, it makes sense that it could be done. I haven't seen it, but I'm going to go back and look at your pictures.
Look at them. They look amazing.
Yeah, it makes sense that they'd be able to do that now. So you have so many crazy technologies, the Matterport and all these other things. How about as a, you know, as a listing agent, marketing the property? I mean, how has technology changed that?
Oh, there's so many ways. That's a great question. You know, buyers obviously, like we mentioned, they're finding properties online. It doesn't mean that they're not still driving by, right? So, for example, we still do signs, for sale signs in the yard, but now I like to incorporate technology into that. So they're not just driving by and you know, seeing my name and the number to call, but they could potentially be driving by really late at night, and I like to use a rider, which is like a piece on top of the sign that gives a number that they can text into, and they can text 24/7, right, you know, anytime, and then they're going to be getting information about the property, so it'll immediately send them, you know, the price, the photos, you know, the descriptive paragraph about the property, so that if they're just driving by and they're kind of curious, they can get the information 24/7, and then obviously I can follow up on that. They can contact me, but it's quick information, you know, so, and that helps represent my sellers better, because I want to capture all of the opportunities for potential buyers. And if we don't respond quick, we don't get that opportunity.
So you think a lot of people are still seeing signs in the yard the old-fashioned way?
You've got to do it all, right? Just because, you know, being online, having a strong online presence is important, doesn't mean that you now neglect kind of the old school methods. Our marketing plan now in this day and age needs to be like encompassing all, right?
Yeah, see, I wondered about that, specifically on one front, which has to do with, you know, people who are searching for properties online, buyers who are looking for properties online, they put in their criteria,
yeah,
right? And then they only see properties that fit that criteria, which sounds great. But how many properties are maybe just outside of their criteria that would be perfectly good for them? You know what I mean? So they put in, you know, all this certain criteria, and they look for stuff, but they might be missing a property here or there that, oh, well, it didn't have that one thing. Maybe it didn't have the 4th bedroom, but it had this bonus room.
Right.
Or something that it could have totally suited your needs, and you just didn't catch it.
It's true.
Because of the way you, so the rigid searches are cool. I like the filters. It does help you sort of narrow things down, but I think for a lot of buyers who've kind of hit a wall, it causes problems, because maybe they're not seeing some things that would work for them. And I think that's where ultimately, you know, you do have to still market the properties. You still have to get it out there, because then people in the area will see it. People might see the sign and go, oh, what's that? Huh, it didn't show up in our search. Oh, we looked at it. Oh, we found it online. And by the way, there's a bonus room, honey. Maybe we should look at this thing.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. I love that. And that's why I think it's important to not neglect any of the marketing methods, to incorporate all of them, and why I really think it's important for me as a broker to have great relationships with other brokers and agents. And that's something that I really enjoy in my business. There are a lot of agents that look at it as I don't want to talk to anyone. This is a competition, right? Like my listing or, you know, get it. And the reality is like we have to work together. So I love supporting other agents and being supported and putting deals together. Like I've had multiple properties, my listings this year that I've sold before they even hit the MLS, because I knew immediately when I took the listing, I said to myself, so-and-so has a buyer, because I know he always works with these buyers or whatever, right? So, and I've sold, like I sold one property in North Park earlier this year for, I think about, it's been a little while, $50,000 or $60,000 above the list price before it even hit the MLS.
Wow.
And I have another one that I'm putting together too, same area, that it will sell before the MLS, simply because I know who has the buyers. And that's fun, yeah.
That's crazy.
And my clients get really excited about that. I love that.
And that's where it pays off to know the right people in the San Diego real estate marketplace. Sarah Davis, thank you so much for coming in today.
Of course, it was so fun.
Great to see you. You're awesome. Let's see here. Okay, a couple things. Great conversation. Jeffrey says, I like the show. Thanks, Jeffrey. Let's see. A question from Bob. Don't you think even though tech plays a role, that when you are working with with the realtor on the other side, that your character and reputation has a bigger role?
Yes.
Well, I think, yeah, for sure. And then we were just talking about, in fact, we just nailed that, Bob. Answered your question. The telekinesis, man. Chrissy Forsyth, how you doing? What's up? She says hi to Sarah as well. So that was an awesome conversation, probably overdue. Thank you so much for bringing it to our attention. It was great to have you today. Stick around for more Smarter San Diego. Live right here on Facebook, we're going to talk about Bitcoin. Wall Street is going to take it over next week, in fact, on Monday, and I'll tell you everything you need to know about that. Thank you, Carlos. Appreciate it, man. And we'll see you guys on the flip side.